Welcome to today's new UI training for the new Rollbar UI. So here's what we'll be covering today. First, we'll be covering the new item detail UI. How do you navigate it? How do you use it? And how can you personalize this new view of your Rollbar data? Next, we'll be looking at the project duplication feature, a great new capability for those of you that create projects quite often, and it'll show you how you can use some of these feature sets to go ahead and set up brand new project pre-configured with all these settings you typically have for most of your projects. And then finally, we'll cover Rollbar Analyze and Rollbar Improve. So what has changed and why? So for many of you who have used the Rollbar UI for many years, one of the biggest requests we've seen from our user base over the years has been the ability to have a more modern interface, but also make it responsive and friendly to mobile devices. So the latest Rollbar UI is using a brand new tech stack, so it's a much more modern interface to look at and to utilize. It also gives us the ability to adjust it for your screen resolution. So if you receive a Rollbar notification via Slack or email or any other method, you can now go ahead, open this up on any device, including mobile devices, and you can interact with these screens quite easily, even looking at a full stack trace. And again, this is a nice and welcome change for many of you who've been using the Rollbar interface. Now, also note at the bottom right-hand side of these screenshots, you can still access our support team. So if you want to speak to a real support engineer or have a question you'd like to get answered, it is a great way throughout the Rollbar UI to ask. Simply press the button and you'll be connected to a real agent and you can ask any question you have. So let's start to look at the new UI. Now, the first thing to note is for many of you, you say, hey, I used to like the 3 charts at the top. Can I get that view back? And the answer is absolutely. So we have 2 toggle buttons to the sort of right of each of these screenshots where you can press those, and this is per user. And it'll then toggle from the default view where the charts are running to the left downwards to back of a more familiar horizontal view of your 3 charts, which are occurrences, affected IP addresses, and affected people. Now, one thing to note is that you will get 3 tabs then. One is context, where you see the charts, and then you'll get a detailed view and a related view. The detailed view will give you a full screen view of your stack trace. So it's a great way if you need a bit more real estate to go ahead and view that stack trace and work on it. It's a great way to actually view this as well. Now, one other thing that is quite useful to many of these charts, which not a lot of people know, is they are interactive, meaning if you look at any of the charts in Rollbar and you see a little bar pop out, you can click on that and it'll simply slide out the occurrences in that specific chart. So all our charts are interactive. You can click on them, and you'll also see in the new UI that the occurrences, if you view all occurrences or click on the bar charts, it'll have a slide out. So no need to actually go ahead and reload or refresh a screen, which is a much faster way to navigate and work with your data. Now, we'll also be able to show you on the related tab any related items or occurrences for these items. And another great thing with this is you'll also see a little button called latest that'll flash in yellow if there's a newer item that was just popping in as you were looking at this existing item. So great way to stay up to date with these as well. Now, for many of you, and hopefully for all of you, you do connect Rollbar with your Git repository. So if you look at a stack trace, your view will look somewhat similar to mine on screen right now, meaning you will get the stack trace that Rollbar has. We'll then connect to a GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket repository, and we can actually pull out the actual commit and obviously show you the line of code, plus the git blame if you do use that. We'll also show you the arguments and locals in line if you have that set up. Now, this is a great way to work with errors in Rollbar. So when you get the stack trace, we'll actually show you the piece of code that is offending. It's a much faster way to go ahead and solve that. Now, you still have a button, little GitHub icon in my example. If you click that, it will take you to the file in your repository, so you can directly go and work and edit that file as well. Now, one of the other big requests we've had from many users over the years was when I look at my raw payload. So when you click on the JSon button in the stack trace view over here, the table, and then JSon view, you will switch to actual JSon editor now, which you can actually search in. You can still copy this data out, but you can actually now search within that editor, have a tree view or the raw JSON view. But it is a great view to look at very large stack frames with lots and lots of data. If you want to quickly search it and get to it, it is a very nice way to get to this data quickly and easily. Now, for those of you who do not connect Rollbar to a Git repository, as I mentioned, GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket, your stack trace should look something like this. Now, one of the big things we have been working on, not only in the SDKs, but also in the UI, is to collapse data that may not be as important to the actual problem that you're trying to resolve. So these are called non-project frames. So Rollbar will now actually know for most of our languages a much higher level of knowledge on the stack frames, and we will automatically collapse these non-project frames for you. And what this does, it cleans up your view so you can actually see the problem. As you can see clearly over here, I've got a Postgres specific issue that's having a problem, but it's collapsed all the non-project frames for me that really don't affect or change how I'm going to root cause and then go ahead and solve this specific issue. Now, one of the brand new capabilities we are bringing out is called Typicality or summarization. So for those of you, you may not see this in your UI yet, but it is coming your way shortly. Now, what this does is when you open up an error and you look at the detail of that error, so the stack trace at the top, when you scroll down, you will see all the arguments, which are really a key value pair with all the data that was received by the Rollbar API in the payload. Now, we give you a brand new column called Typicality. And what we're doing is we're actually summarizing all the data from all the occurrences for this item and telling you how typical or common a specific value and data pair is. So in this example, only 16% of the errors actually come from this specific IP address over here, but 96% have the context header in them. All of them are coming from production and so on and so on. But this is a great way to quickly see what is jumping out at you that might be the root cause of this problem. And again, if you click on these values, it's a clickable link, it'll take you to the list of those items as well. But this is a great way, instead of running an RQL query or trying to get data from the API, to very quickly and easily see what is the most common set of factors that might be causing this to happen. Now, for those of you who do send in backend API requests as an example, we still give you the curl command. So if you scroll on down after your stack trace and parameters, you will still get your curl command, which you still have a copy button for. You can copy that right out and go ahead and run that data. Do note that we do scrub token data in here. So any personal data or any data you choose to scrub will be removed from this as well. So be sure to view that as well, and you should see them marked as little stars. But a great way to actually reproduce an error, you can simply copy this out, update a token, and rerun this to reproduce an error for backend API in my case. Now, for those of you working on front-end applications, we still have telemetry. So again, as you scroll down, instead of a curl command for backend, for front-end, we do have telemetry. So we'll give you all the events leading up to this specific error, as you can see over here. And again, this is a great way, if you're working on a front-end error, to sort of see all the things that happened in sequence up until that error has occurred. And then Rollbar can help you identify that as well. Now, the next thing we definitely spend a lot of time working on is using both the comments and history in the Rollbar item. So right now in the new UI, you will see a blue button that looks like a chat button. It's on the far right-hand corner of your screen. If you press that, it'll open up the timeline and followers tabs. And this allows you to make comments on a specific item. You can also say it's been resolved or resolved in a revision. You can add the link to a Jira item, Trello item, but you can also natively integrate with Jira, Trello, or all these other tools, and they will also show up here if you have that native integration turned on. Now, if you ever wanted to follow a specific issue, so get notified whenever this item happens again, you can simply press the follow button or unfollow if you want to stop getting updates when something happens on here as well. Again, this is a great way to stay up to date with specific issues that you really care about, but also make comments for your future self and teammates as to how an item was solved or some insight into that item. So the next piece is item statuses. Now we have basically three statuses in Rollbar, as many of you might know. It is the active state, resolved, and muted. Now, we just want to cover all these states and what they do and how they can be utilized in Rollbar. So the active state is whenever something happens in Rollbar and the error occurs, it is automatically placed into the active state and shows up in your list view, shows up in your dashboard, and you will get triggered so you can get notified, for example, by email, Slack, PagerDuty, or any other integration you might have. And again, you've got to go ahead and set up and configure those notification rules as well. And of course, these items do count towards your billing. Now, when you press the resolved button in Rollbar, or if you use the auto resolve capabilities in Rollbar, where we can automatically mark an item as resolved whenever we no longer see that item, or if you want to auto resolve on a deployment, or finally, if you connect us to Jira or some of these ticketing systems, you can resolve when that item is actually marked as resolved or done in a Jira item, as an example. But when it's marked as resolved in Rollbar, it no longer shows up in your dashboard. When a new error happens that is the same as the one that was resolved before, it then gets the reactivated status. And then you can get triggered or notified because the item is now reactivated again. So it's active again after it was resolved. And again, this is a great way to see if an error has been brought back by a specific code release, as an example. But again, all these errors do count towards your billing. Now, when you press the mute button in Rollbar, that means that item will no longer appear on your dashboard or your list view. You can, of course, get it back by simply changing your filter. But of course, it still does count towards your billing, but you have to remember to unmute that item if you want to start to get notified upon it, any new items coming into it. So again, be mindful of that. You can press the mute button and make sure to unmute those items whenever you're ready to start to get notified of those items again. But again, in your list item view, you can change your list view to show me all my muted items or the team's muted items as well. Now, one of the key capabilities of Rollbar that many know or may not know exists is when you look at an item in the list view or when you open it up in the item detail page, you can rename the title of that item or the name that is displayed. And this is a great capability in Rollbar. It does not affect any grouping or anything like that. It's really the naming of the object. And this is useful if you look at a large list view with lots of errors that sometimes look the same. It's a great way to make a specific item jump out at you. It also allows you to make sure when you get notified that that item again stands out from a normal notification. So simply click on them to go ahead and rename those. Now, we still have item assignments in Rollbar. And again, if you link up to a system like Jira and automatically create a Jira ticket, you might use assignments in those ticketing systems. But for many teams, they'd like to do that in Rollbar. So you can go ahead and now search in the new UI to go and find the people responsible for it and pick the user that should be assigned to this item. You can also now invite directly from this window. Now, for those of you who want to automate this process, you can go ahead and look at a code ownership file, for example, in a Git repository, or maybe any other data within the payload and run an auto assignment to get it to the correct team or people that need to work on this item. The next one is severity levels. Now, for many of you, you might know that when an error happens and it comes into Rollbar, if it's an unhandled exception, for example, it'll be marked as an error. But you can change the severity levels of an item via the UI, but also via a patch command in the API. So this is a great way if you say, hey, there's a specific error that happens, but really in your world, it's fine. It's not the end of the world. I want to flag that as a warning and not an error. You can actually go ahead and change that in Rollbar. So you have full control over changing the status or level of that item that is shown in the UI. This is a great way if you want to clean up, for example, the noise that you see in your item list view, because you really only care about critical and error items, not really those warnings. It also helps you clean up your dashboard and also, very importantly, alerts. So if you're getting Slack alerts or email alerts, and really you care about errors and critical items, again, if you change the severity level on an item, your notification rules will automatically take that to account. So this is a great capability that many of you may not know that we have, but go ahead and use that. It is a great way to save your time, yourself a ton of time to get to items you want to. Now, the next piece we'll go over very quickly is, of course, grouping within Rollbar. Now, a couple of things to note. Grouping should typically happen automatically for you, but you have full control over grouping should you choose to do so, meaning you can go ahead and create your own custom grouping rules. But again, if you select multiple items in your list view that you would like to group together, you can simply select them and press the merge button, and Rollbar will automatically create that grouping rule for you. A couple of notes for you. If you change, for example, the server.root, that might change some of your grouping. So a couple of things to be aware of there as well as to what that does with grouping. Now, when you merge these items together, it's a great way to get items grouped in a list together. But of course, you can go ahead and create these custom fingerprint rules if you want. There's an editor where you can go and create these JSon rules and modify them to your liking. But once you've created these merged items, you might want to unmerge them. So if you have manually merged any item in the new UI and you open up that item, you will get a brand new tab called Members. So after the detail related tabs, there will be a new one called Members. And this allows you to either unmerge all or the selected items that you would not like to be part of this grouped item. So that is fully within your control, and it is a great way to manage items you want to be grouped or not, so they will go ahead and be their own items again. Right, let's move on to a brand new capability within the Rollbar system. So we've introduced project duplication. Now, for many of you that have created projects in Rollbar in the past, you know that when you set up a project, you would need to set up all your notifications, Slack, email, the GitHub repositories, your Jira integration. And these are things you'd have to set up and configure. What we introduce now with project duplication is the capability to copy an existing project, or what we recommend is to create a template project, and every new project simply uses that template as its base. But this allows you to set up all the integrations you want, and whenever you create a brand new project based on an existing one, so using this duplication feature, either via the UI or via the API or even our Terraform provider. So whenever you create these projects, they will automatically get all the notification rules you want, including rate limits, including Slack rules, email rules, PagerDuty, GitHub. All these integrations you typically want will be covered when you duplicate these projects. It is a great way to very, very quickly get projects into a state or sort of a template state that you want for all new Rollbar projects. And again, this is available in the UI via our API as well as our Terraform provider. So highly recommend you start using this for any new projects. And then finally, for those of you who've been using Rollbar for a while, you might see that the RQL menu is no longer on the left-hand side. It has been replaced by the Analyze menu. So within Rollbar, we have now merged RQL with our Metrics API under the Analyze banner. So what that means is any data analytics you want to do, if you want to get data out of Rollbar using RQL, which is for Rollbar query language, you can do so. Or if you want to use the Metrics API to get specific metrics at a very large scale, you can use the Metrics API as well. So a couple of big changes on the RQL front. We have done a lot of work on performance improvement. So we've added columns that are now considered optimized columns. So go ahead, look at our documentation, use those optimized columns to have your queries return much, much faster. And again, we also now give you quite a few templates for RQL templates to go ahead and use to go ahead and run your queries as well. And finally, for the Metrics API, if you want to build your own dashboards, if you want to feed tools like Grafana or any other tool that might be showing you your metrics to team members, go ahead and use the Metrics API. It is a great set of APIs specifically designed to return at a very, very fast speed metrics from Rollbar. And you can go ahead and use SQL-like terms. For example, the start date, end time, group by, filters are all included in the data payload that you can send in to the Metrics API. So this is a great thing if you want to build out your own dashboards or get those metrics out of Rollbar at scale. And again, if you want to still use RQL to get more detailed information about an item, it is very good for that. But any counts, any sort of metrics, highly recommend moving over to the Metrics API. So we do hope that this has helped today for you to look at the brand new Rollbar UI and some of our new capabilities. If you have any questions, if you'd like to learn more, please head over to rollbar.com.